Okay. Good morning, everyone. And we are holding in our hearts today the full healing of Abraham ben Sarah Yaakov. Um, Ki Tisa is the name the rabbis gave to this section of the Torah portion in the middle of the book of Exodus. And it's in the middle, I'm pretty sure, yeah, of the 5 Torah portions that are focused on how to build this Mishkan. This is the first collective endeavor, really, of the human story in a lot of ways in the whole Torah. I don't think that there's really collective tribal wide or people wide building of anything in the book of Genesis. There's a lot of building by individuals in the book of Genesis, right? This is okay. Now, a people, how do we come together in a society? What do we have to uh, do? What are the processes that we have to go through together? And this, and it's the building of this Mishkan, which is translated in all of the different English translations that I have, or most of them. It's translated as tabernacle. And I really meant to look up where is this word tabernacle, which someone knows. But the way we have these calls set in, you won't hear this on Zoom. You'll have to go to Rav Google yourself if you're interested. Anyway, but it's post Torah is when my understanding is when the word Shekhinah grew out of this word Mishkan. So the Shekhinah, which is seen as the divine feminine, the divine presence, the way that the divine, that we can organize our lives and our individual selves so that the divine can dwell among us, actually has been birthed in the Jewish tradition. The notion of Shekhinah, the word Shekhinah, has been birthed from the building of the Mishkan in Torah. So that's kind of exciting to think about it that way. And so I looked at the Parsha this year from the perspective of, well, what is it that is being, what's like an overarching way of understanding all the different components of what's going on to building this structure? And the theme that is speaking to me is inclusion. That for this to succeed, we have to create systems and ways of thinking and ways of organizing ourselves so that everyone can participate. And of course, we are so mourning right now how we live in a world that fewer and fewer people are actually being included in decision making, in the sharing of resources, in care. And Torah is saying just the opposite. And so the very first method of inclusion that is in this week's Parsha is again often translated as the taking of a census. Of course, when we look at the Hebrew and we play with it, it's far deeper. So the word ki tisa means when you elevate, and it's when you elevate everyone to actually count them. It is like this total concept of inclusion. And it's a different elevation than from Tetzaveh from last week, when it was elevating Lechalot. All right, Abigail, you're gonna have to correct all my Hebrew afterwards. But it's a whole different word for elevation. It's from the word
are alluding to qualities of the divine. So please don't get too confused.
Whoa, you know what that is? Do you hear that? That is Rabbi Daniel Matt. My computer just turned on a video because I've been studying the Zohar. So that was just a few words from Rabbi Daniel Matt, interrupting my drosh. Okay. So Ki Tisa is when you lift, the connotation is usually lift, as in lift the head. And so they developed this amazing system. Toyrah, whoever develops this amazing system to include everyone, which is, and the system only works if every single person participates. So the goal of this first method of inclusion is to count. How many of us are there here in the desert who are going to build this Mishkan? So we can imagine, I don't know, 400,000 people spread out in this wilderness, camped under some tree where maybe there's a little trickle of water. Okay, it's Daniel Matt really wants to speak through my computer, and I really want to let him in, honestly. Anyway, so the system that they develop for counting, right, a system dependent on the participation of everyone, is that every person will come forward with a half shekel. And then once you collect all the half shekels, so everyone gives the exact same half shekel. Query, shekel, where did shekels and coins come from? I mean, this is mystical stuff as far as I'm concerned. But let's say at the end of the count, right, you have 10 half shekels, you have 10 people. So it's this beautiful system that is set up that it only works if everyone donates, right? And thinking back to the previous two parshas that we're talking about, and giving all the instructions for building this Mishkan, we learned that the condition for participation, that what you bring, your terumah, your donation, has to come from an unfrozen heart, right? A willing heart, a heart that is enough on the road out of Pharaoh heart, right? Frozen, constricted heart with no openings. That the heart is significantly enough unfrozen, so it's willing. And also then last week in Tetzaveh, so the willing heart is in Terumah, which was the first of the 5 parshas about building the Mishkan. The second one last week was Tetzaveh, which was the heart of wisdom, of Chokhmah, the heart that, and what was lifted last week. So here we have the second lifting this week. What was lifted last week was the Ner Tamid, the always light, the consciousness that was always lit. So what is it that enables us to create a system that is dependent on everyone participating? Is a society, a group, a culture that's actually valuing everyone enough so that people can let go of the defenses of their hearts, right? So that people can trust, wow, people really want me to be included. And it's the same in our families. It's the same in our synagogues. It's the same everywhere. Like what do we do so that people understand that the only way our society, for me, the only way the Holy Land, Israel, Palestine, the only way the US, all of the more than 100,000 migrants who've come here with nothing in the last year, the only way that we're all going to elevate, right, is by figuring out how to create willingness in everyone to bring their wise hearts forward and to participate. So I thought that's the first brilliant system for getting everybody to include. So Of course, what happens right after apparently this half shekel system works is, as is the case throughout Torah, there's an ascension and then there's a descension, a descending. And Moses is hidden in this cloud with the divine up on the top of Mount Sinai, and the people start flipping out. And there's all kinds of interesting midrash, riffs on Torah that talk about how the people were telling time wrong, and they measured the wrong hours. Moses wasn't really late. However, flash forward a little bit, when you see Moses is just like in this incredibly divine communion state on the top of Mount Sinai, he probably was late. Because how many of us, it's like when you're in bed and you're having this like wonderful dream, you don't really want to wake up. You want to like, oh, let me just stay in this dream a little longer. However, it never works, at least for me, right? Whenever it happened this morning, actually, I stayed in bed a little later because I was having this like amazing dream. And I'm like, oh, let me just go back to bed and just see if I can get the dream back. And of course I couldn't. Well, that's pretty much what's happening in this parsha, that Moses, like, oh, let me just stay up here in this total divine communion. And he keeps getting it. Well, no, not exactly. This isn't going to be what you think it is. And this isn't going to work out how you think it's going to work out. But one midrash that I found about what was going on with the people, the fear and anxiety that arose in them that led them to build the golden calf. And this is the parsha where what the rabbis considered the ultimate um, uh, paradigm of the fall of humanity, really, since the eating of the apple, is the building of the golden calf. I thought this is a really interesting take that one of the rabbis came up with about what was really going on. So the line is that the people go to Aharon, Moses' older brother, who's left in charge. And by the way, now this is after, right? They just built all. It's just been made clear that Aaron is being anointed as the priest, and the entire endeavor last week of the building of the Mishkan was about, Aaron's clothing. So for all the people know, Aaron is now replacing Moses, right? They don't know. And by the way, Aaron replacing Moses, I think we can look at as a continuation of the healing between brothers. That is a major theme of Torah, right? Because Aaron was the older, and only he's now being elevated from just being like a mouthpiece for his younger brother who has a stutter, to being like the priest with the dynasty. Anyway, so Aaron's left in charge while Moses is up on the mountain communing with God. And the people go to Aaron, and they say, we don't know what happened to that man. It's like really odd languaging in Torah, like that man. That's how they're referring to Moses. And you sort of have this image of them pointing up to this like dark cloud on the top of Mount Sinai, like, what happened to that man? And this midrash says that actually the people were still having a moment of revelation or a moment of hallucination, which is what Aviva Zornberg says. She says, actually, the people were like so freaked out and in such a high state of collective anxiety that they're having a moment of hallucinating, and they're looking up and they're seeing Moses suspended between heaven and earth. So like, yeah, we don't know what happened to that man. And now they're thinking, holy moly, is that what happens when you get so close to this divine consuming fire? Because remember, the people have experienced this divine as a consuming fire. Moses is the only one who experienced it as an unconsuming fire, right, at the bush. So Moses can get close. So the people, and this is how I remember Aviva Zornberg talking about it. I found my notes from studying this with Aviva Zornberg in 2014, exactly 10 years ago in Jerusalem. And she's writing about how they're in this total hallucination caused by their fear and anxiety. And it's their fear and anxiety because and this is something I heard this week. A different rabbi explained Egypt is the place of certainty. And that's why the people are always like, oh, let us go back there. We can't stand uncertainty. The wilderness is the place of uncertainty, right? So now here's, this Moses who they are confused. They think he was God. He's all they saw. They never saw a God. They heard, their senses were completely confused at Sinai. They don't know what they're seeing, what they're hearing. And now they're hallucinating that Moses is like suspended between heaven and earth. And the image I have is like a Chagall painting, where people are just sort of flying over the rooftops. So, of course, they're like, okay, we have actually lost our intermediary, the certainty. And there's a lot written about, and I think Rabbi Jonathan Sachs talks about this, that the people had, in a way, made Moses a false idol. The golden calf was not the first false idol, right? Over and over, they're saying to Moses, you brought us out, you see, you talk. And now their false idol is like floating in the clouds. And so that the building of the golden calf, and I'm just picking this of many ways the rabbis have looked at it, because I always like to look for the golden lining in the cloud, to excuse the pun, that they weren't actually building another god with the golden calf. They were building a new intermediary. And it's actually likened to the Urim and the Turim, at that are, like these images that are actually to be built, at, I think, at the entrance of the Holy of Holies in the Mishkan, I think. No, okay, but they're being built there. Uh, I'm not going to look it up, but so that what the people were doing was actually looking for a way to uh, channel their closeness that felt safe for them without Moses. And yeah, I think I just want to, there's so much more to say. But I think I just want to say that maybe this is a time when things are so hard in the world right now, that instead of what I usually do every year is like, oh, what are my false idols? And, what do I need to put on the altar and burn up? Maybe this is a year for us to say, well, okay, rather than false idol, what am I trying to create that can bring me some safety and certainty in a world that's so uncertain and so unsafe? Because in the end, thanks to Moses, the divine does forgive. I mean, there's a lot of harshness. I think a lot of people are actually killed, which uh, this parsha also, uh, I think, often comes closer to Purim. This is a leap year, so it's not, we have the extra month of Adar, but it's like there's always this extra little at the end of a story that is just telling us anger is here. We're not going to come to a world without anger, but we can experiment and learn to create things that we can hold on to give us comfort. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone.